So economy is not doing well right now. So I believe it's going to get worse and worse and worse eventually till it crashes, and then it's going to rebuild itself. Then we have all the stuff that we talked about before that. The UK, the US, Europe is failing big time. A lot of people are getting richer and richer. Other 99% of people are getting poorer and poorer and poorer. We saw it in the last 4 years, right? During the pandemic, all those companies, they went from 1 trillion like Apple to 3 trillions, or Microsoft, 3 trillions evaluation. That's crazy. So the distinction is getting bigger and bigger. That's when riot happens. At minimum, riot happens. Maximum is what? Civil war? That's what we're heading for?
I think there's potential for that to some degree. I actually watched a film interesting the other day about, I think it might be called Civil War or something, about the United States. I think it was like Texas and California against the rest of the world, the rest of the US or something. Do I think it would ever come to that? Probably not. But do I think that the US could maybe break up into separate states?
But that's crazy.
But if you look at it selfishly from different people's point of view, maybe Florida, for example, some of the other states, like, would they be better off on their own? Debatably, maybe. And it's the same thing in terms of the UK Brexit scenario, which was handled really badly. I voted for the UK to leave because I think that the UK is better on its own than in Europe. They just did a shit job in terms of actually exiting, and the government ever since has been like a bunch of morons. But I think there's a strong possibility that it could break up at some point if things continue. But I think the reality is, would there ever be a civil war in the US again? There's too much at stake. I think there could be uprisings, yes, but then the government here has so much actual military power, police power, that I think that's unlikely. I think you'd be more likely that's more of a European thing I think I could see happening, like France, Germany, UK.
But that scene in that movie that you've mentioned, Civil Wars, we're Americans.
Yeah.
What kind of American? Fuck, really? What kind of Americans? Like from the
South?
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. I was an interesting question, right?
What kind of Americans?
Yeah. Like, where are you from? And then he shoots one of them because he didn't like where he's from.
And you're mentioning that maybe it's not going to get to civil war, but I want to say a week ago, Joe Biden said one thing, and the governor of Florida, DeSantis, said, we're not going to obey.
There's still a big divide, and I say this as a foreigner who just travels a lot, between the US, between the northern states and the southern. Like, just in terms of mindset and the way they think. And it's the same thing of anywhere. It's a big country. The north of England is very different from the south of England for anyone who's ever been. It's, I think, normal, and I think trying to balance that out is a challenge for whoever's in charge. But that comes down to the skill of leadership, which I think at the moment Joe Biden's a bit of a joke in terms of how he's in charge in the first place. I have no idea. And I think that's fundamentally where the problems are coming from, because there's a lack of strong leadership.
But in my opinion, the best thing that ever happened in the U.S. in the past 50 years, I want to say, is people saw what a weak leader can do. So for 4 years, this is what happened. A, B, C, D, E, right? So right now it's election year. You want to continue this thing? Vote for the same guy. If you want to change, vote for another guy. That's the best thing that could happen. If in 2020 Trump was elected, that would be his last year. That's it. Second term. No one else would be there in the Republican Party. But Joe Biden won. Everyone saw what it's like. Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Iran, Palestine. The whole thing in the U.S. The gas went up from $1.50 for a gallon to $6 a gallon. 4 times. What
you just said is very interesting, because the single thing of the Russia-Ukraine war nearly fucked the entire global economy. Because the costs of everything in the UK went through the roof because of everything that was being imported from Russia could no longer be imported, fuel costs, whatever.
And from Ukraine as well.
Yeah, and from Ukraine as well. And this is where the knock-on consequences of one decision on the other side of the world from one person who's completely incompetent and lacks leadership skills. People don't like Donald Trump, but he, from what I see and understand, has a pretty decent relationship with Vladimir Putin, which is probably pretty important when he's like the biggest
number 2 guy.
Yeah, like you need to have a decent relationship with a person, whereas like Joe Biden clearly doesn't have that mutual respect. And I think for me, one of the reasons I like Donald Trump is the fact that he wasn't a career politician. He's actually done stuff in real life, so he actually can use a logical problem-solving brain and like look at the United States as an actual business, which people actually have to, rather than like the socialist perfect world of like we all dance around and this is all going to be okay, it's not going to be okay if someone doesn't deal with it. And I think that's where they need strong leadership for someone to come in.
The guy's from the streets. He knows what it's like to get respect and get respected. So that's all it is. I don't think that would be a war in Ukraine if Trump was in the office. That's for sure. I don't think that Palestine would do the thing that they did last year if Trump was in the Oval Office.
Why do you think that is? Because they wouldn't be allowed to get away with it?
Yeah, just because the way that Joe Biden said to Iran when Iran said maybe we will attack Israel, don't. That's all that he said. Don't. So they did. What now?
When then nothing happens.
Nothing happens. They don't respect him. That's it. Donald Trump was respected by all leaders. China, Russia, Iran. The guy took out number 2 guy in Iran in 2020, and nothing happened. Number 2 guy that was considered to be the president, whoever it is in Iran. He killed him, and he said he made jokes of him. Abu, he was like a dog. You saw that clip?
Yeah.
He was joking about it. And Iran did nothing.
And I think this is also where people need to understand, not that you need to have a president who's slightly crazy, but you need to have someone who's willing, like they would question whether like Donald Trump would pull the trigger on something big.
Yeah.
Where Joe Biden, they're like, no way.
You
like,
have to have the cojones.
Yeah. Like if it comes to it, he'd be like, would he be willing to go to war with Russia, Donald Trump? Like if it fucking came to it, probably. Like not that anyone would ever want that. Joe Biden, not in a million fucking years, and the Russians know that as well. So like they can see. It's like if like boxing fights, when someone looks in someone's eyes, they know when they've fucking lost or they're weak, they're done.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in like a global stage.
The way Tyson fought, right?
Yeah,
a lot of
100%.
opponents told that they lost the fight before the fight. They just look at his eyes and they realize I'm gonna get fucking knocked out in first round. That's it. So yeah, I don't think that Russia would happen. I believe that the guy was respected as hell, and I believe he's gonna come back in 2024. And I still believe that there is a chance for the Western world because we've seen what can happen. We've seen the stabbing capital of the world. A lot of extremist Muslims are in charge right now in the UK. Okay, so in the next 4 years, people have to make their mind and realize that this can't be in the next 4 years. We have to be more cautious.
The problem we have in the UK is that if you ever say anything against that type of regime, you get called massive racists. So like I don't think it still goes. I'm so out of UK politics, but we used to have something called UKIP, and it was basically trying to get us out of Brexit, out of Europe, UK Independence Party, and like anything that's seen as like vaguely nationalist or like UK pride or whatever, you're just seen as white supremacist racists. Whereas the reality is like the UK was originally a white country where we had people like we just are, and so it's not a race thing. It's like looking after the people who are originally from that area, and it's no different than if you went to Dubai is a great example again. 89% of the population of Dubai are foreigners, expats. Yeah. And the people who are locals, the Emiratis, are like seen above foreigners. I have no issue with that at all. This isn't my country. I have come here. I really like it. I'm very respectful. It's an amazing place.
You respect
but I have nothing but respect for that. And I have no issue with them. Like, you're born here. This is your country. That's fine. So I don't understand why other countries can't have the same thing. Same thing if I, further down the line, I'd like to move to the US at some point, maybe in 10 years' time. I would have the same respect for people who were born American. And I also think a lot of people who are born American take it for massive granted, which is why both of us as foreigners both like it here, because you have everything in the United States at your disposal and no excuses.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that and they take it for massive granted.
So the worst thing that they did, I want to say, is they made American-born Americans hate the country. It's like not me, not you, not Arabs, not guys from Africa, Asia, China, somewhere else that hate America. The whole country of America hate America. If you take your flag, you're like white supremacist, you're a bigot, the sex, all that stuff, racist, just by carrying the American flag. That's the worst thing that you can do. So
this just reminded me of something. Something that really shocked me when I first spending a lot of time in the US is the amount of American flags you see everywhere.
Yeah.
If you go to the UK, you'll never see a British flag. Because if you have a British flag, you're seen as a racist, like supremacist. Like the only time you might see a British flag is on Buckingham Palace, maybe, and like Windsor Castle. Like outside of that, I don't even know if they're at the airports when you arrive. Like,
so brother, we we traveled to Spain in 2021 in summer, right? We said, that's it. We're done with Lithuania, all that stuff, with the COVID stuff. And for 2 years, we've been living there. After 1 year, we came to Lithuania to visit Lithuania, our loved ones, for 2 weeks. So the whole thing in Ukraine started 2022 February. We went in 2022 September. The amount of Ukrainian flags we saw in Lithuania, it was 10 times more than Lithuanian flags. We have our parliament is called Seimas. In our own parliament, there is a Ukrainian flag. There is not a thing. There isn't such a thing in Spain. There isn't such a thing in the UK. But Lithuania is all about Ukraine.